here we are, San Diego Comic-Con with some of the High Republic authors. Let's go around the table, say hello, introduce what's your latest book.
Hello, I'm George Mann. My latest book is, I guess, Tales of Light and Life, the new anthology. It's just come out.
Nice.
My name is Charles Soule. My latest High Republic thing is also Tales of Light and Life, but I'm also writing the Star Wars mainline comic and doing a lot of other Star Wars stuff too.
Hi, I'm Cavan Scott. My latest book has been Path of Vengeance for the High Republic. My next one's Tales of the Light of Life and Tales from the Death Star as well, coming soon.
Hi, my name is Justina Ireland. My latest Star Wars book was the Santa Star Wars Mini, and my latest High Republic will be the Tales of Light.
So we'll start with the High Republic, obviously, because that's what we're here for. We're still a ways away from the end, but it is in sight. For all of you, especially those of you that have been on since the beginning, what's that feeling like knowing that, a date has been set for the last book?
Senioritis, right? Like, so when you're like in your senior year of high school and you're like, I can see the end, the future is there. That's how it feels. It feels like all the things we've worked really hard for are finally coming to pay off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that sense of like, can't quite believe we've got to that point already, but it also seems like we've been doing it forever.
It's been 87 years.
It does not feel particularly close to me because I have a whole book to write before I'm at that point. If anything, the start of writing that book is feeling like it's looming. It's all very like nerve-wracking and so on for me. But it'll be fun when it's done.
For me, it's just excitement being able to get to play with those Phase 1 characters because, coming in, I did a few bits and bobs for Phase 1, did a lot of work for Phase 2, and now I'm getting my hands on Ava and Elzar and things like that, so that's great.
Yeah, and coming into Phase 3 now, it's been a little while since we last saw the Phase 1 characters. What was it like to go back to them and start revisiting them, start writing them again?
I mean, it's kind of like coming home in a lot of ways. It was, we've missed those characters. We've been wanting to get back to, and no matter how much I love the Phase 2 characters and the Phase 2 era, that plays a big part in Phase 3 as well. It was like coming back to that core group of people that I'd been writing for in the Marvel comic, that crew. That felt like coming home.
Yeah,
agreed.
It feels like there's unfinished business, and getting a chance to go back to them and complete the story arcs that we've been talking about these things, these stories for years, and now that we get to actually write those words and have those things happen it's just awesome. It feels great.
Yeah, it's just a case for me of wanting to do justice to those characters, make sure that what I'm writing in Eye of Darkness reflects the story that these guys wanted, but also bringing a bit of myself to it as well, and making sure that the characters, the journey they're on feels right to the readers as well.
Nice.
Yes. And for me, it's mostly about, when we first wrote those books for Phase 1, we were the only ones who knew the characters. We were the only ones who really had to be careful of them and their arcs. And now there's so many other people who love those characters. I feel like an extra layer of responsibility because we've broken so many hearts, killed so many favorites. And so I was like, I gotta take care of our babies because, they're not just mine anymore. They're not just our babies anymore. They're everyone's who loves the High Republic.
And they've literally grown up.
And they've literally grown up.
Yeah, does that create a new level of pressure for you, knowing that there is such a robust High Republic fandom that now you're coming back to these characters that, like you said, people love now, and there's a whole other level of like people have been thinking about them for a year, not just you guys.
I think we felt that from the first celebration we did
after,
when we did that amazing panel with 4,000 people sitting there. We had no idea there were that many people because we had lights in our face, and when the lights went off and we saw it, it was, there was certainly, it's daunting, but also there was a level of excitement there because you realise that, hang on, this matters. This, people are invested in this, and so that was exciting. It energised in a way that, because we launched this in a vacuum.
Yeah, we launched it during the pandemic.
Yeah,
right.
January 2021.
Yeah.
I remember very clearly the way we all talked about it amongst ourselves during that celebration, being like, holy cow, this is really, we did something. We didn't really understand it, and then we did understand it, and then that's when some of the expectations start to set in.
Yeah.
And I think it's more about expectations for ourselves than it is fan expectations necessarily. Like we're trying to do the best possible job we can to live up to the way people felt about the things we already did. So what a wonderful problem to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a good problem to have. I was at the Celebration London High Republic panel. That was a great time. What was it like to be on stage for that one?
I think it was my first experience of kind of what those guys had at that previous one. Really, it's like Beatlemania.
Yeah,
in the best possible way. You know, it's like feeling like what you're, like Cav said, it's what you're doing matters to people, which does put a bit of weight on, but in a good way, in a way that makes you kind of go, well, okay, I'm going to pay close attention to what I'm writing, and I'm going to make sure I get it right, because it matters not just to me as the writer, but to the people who care about it as much as we do.
Which of us is Ringo? That's what I want to know.
I think you've always been Ringo.
I am all Ringo.
you asked the question. I think that answers.
I
the
love
point.
Ringo. I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't love Ringo?
Exactly.
I mean, who doesn't?
Lovely. So looking ahead at phase 3. Again, can you talk a little bit about how you're going to incorporate, again, without giving away spoilers, but how you're going to incorporate what we've learned in phase 2 with what we know from phase 1 and bringing those characters and those important storylines from phase 1 and phase 2 together?
Hang on a minute. Mike, can we say... No, there we go.
Question answered.
I think the important thing is that it matters. You know, what happened back then matters now, and the repercussions of that are going to be felt.
And it matters in the way that Star Wars is really good at, which is that Star Wars is a living history where things flow sort of naturally from one thing that happens into the next thing. It all feels like this is how it would have gone. It doesn't feel necessarily like plotty. It feels like mythology, where this is just what happens. And I think when you think about phase 2 and phase 1 and phase 3, and when you see it all laid out together, it's going to feel like that. Like, this is the history of this time. There's a reason we chose these elements to highlight and show in the story, but it's all going to feel like one big story when all said and done.
And in Star Wars, no one is really gone.
Yeah.
Except Stellan Geos.
That's the one.
He's never coming back. When you guys are writing something that's in this fresh era, that's completely on its own, how much thought are you putting into stuff where you're like, oh, that could be a story that someone else could tell someday? Like, when you do include little details going, I hope someone picks up on that, or I hope I get to pick up on that at some point?
Yeah, because I think to make a world feel lived in, you have to have unanswered and unexplored story, right? Like, we don't know everything, even though we think we do, right? And the internet doesn't even know everything, even though it thinks it does. And so I think it's really important to have like these moments where like somebody's referenced or mentioned, or you meet a character and you're like, oh, I wonder where they go after the scene. And I think because one of the things that Star Wars has been so great about is like taking a character that seems like a very unimportant minor character, and all of a sudden like they have a much bigger story arc. And so for me, it's like I love the small moments, because I feel like the small moments make the big moments feel more authentic.
Yeah, and I think it's what we said right from the beginning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It happened in Star Wars, when Obi-Wan's sitting there talking about the Clone Wars, you're like, the what now?
Yeah.
And then now we know what that is. And we definitely wanted to leave those breadcrumbs. I mean, I know personally, I just put words in to see, if someone will pick them up, or whether it's something I can return to. And we've done it with each other. I mean, Lorna's probably one of the examples. You put Lorna into Light of the Jedi, and we didn't really know what her story was at that point, and that I would sort of be taking her on and leading forward with her. So it's been part of what we do as a team from the off, and because we trust each other as well, and we've worked with each other for a long time now, we know that, that's something that Justina will run with, or Tessa will run with, or that's a Claudia moment. So it's there built into it, really.
And can you talk a little bit more about like kind of the collaborative process for all of you, and how you went about, we've heard the story of how you went about constructing it. We saw that whiteboard in the original video with
one of the whiteboards.
One of the whiteboards,
yeah.
One of many whiteboards. Yeah. But as the project has evolved and grown and spun off in interesting and exciting ways, can you talk about how you've maintained that collaboration between each other?
Well, we have a Slack.
Very straightforward answer, yeah.
So we talk a lot. We also have a very, very open line of communication between all of us. We're all able, to text each other and call each other and talk things through, and we kind of make a point of it, so that if we're working with somebody else's characters, which is in big air quotes, we take we discuss it. You know, it's something where we all know we're part of a team, and we're fortunate that we can work together as well as we do. And I think it really speaks for itself. The way that, like, I recently read through like pretty much all of everything, and the way that that's been out to date, and the way that it all connects in like the tiniest little ways is unbelievable. And I think we just decided to do it. So it's great.
Yeah, and we work back as well. We kind of, so if we know like Charles is writing something that's touching on the characters that I'm writing or events that I'm writing about, we'll talk about it and say, how can we set things up for each other? You know, what do I need to put in this book that's going to make your story feel more connected or work better? And that's across the board. So we have those discussions, and you know, usually we'll go back to what we're writing and put those links in to make sure it's joining up.
And sometimes the moments when you have a clash is when the magic really happens. So there's been times where someone...
Half of the seat. I said you had to see. You're like, could you change the second half of the book? I'm like, I don't want that. What is wrong?
But you get moments where like someone will pop up, like Daniel will pop up and say, is it all right if I put this on Valo? And you go, no! But then you go, okay, right, if you do that, how does this work? And you know, and I mean, one of the examples right back at the beginning, that there were 2 characters that became Ava, because there were 2 characters that were working along the same route, and then we suddenly went, well, why isn't it that person? And so it's those moments that you can't plan for, that's what makes this kind of rum experience so fulfilling.
Fantastic. Looking ahead and being, you know, conscious of Mike over here, not wanting to, not wanting to get.
A picture of Mike on our wall.
He sent it to us.
Yeah.
It's on the wall. What was the Blaine say?
Is there somewhere in the High Republic books that have been published already that you think people should pay extra close attention to, that should maybe go back and have a look at if they want to really be ready for Phase 3?
It all matters. I think that's the thing that's hard to like explain. It's like even those small throwaway lines that people are like, yeah, whatever, that's just, you know, I don't like that character, they're annoying, why do they keep popping up? And then you're gonna see them again. And so I think that's I think people get used to things feeling like they're random, but nothing is random in the High Republic. Everything that's on the page we have planned. And if we didn't plan it, then somebody else is like, oh, this gives me an answer to a problem I have. So, I mean, like one of the things that's great about Phase 3 is you can go back and find the characters that didn't get the moments in Phase 1, right? And say like, okay, how do I use these characters in new ways? So that's my advice, is like, if you've read everything, then you're gonna be, you know, well prepared. If you've skipped some things, you might be like, where did this happen? But it's fine, we'll catch you up on the story you're reading.
Yeah, and I think it's also, if I go back to my previous Star Wars work from before the High Republic, the stuff we were writing when we were starting to build, and there are still things in there that you might not have realised are linked to the High Republic. And again, that's not something to beat people who haven't realised. It's a treat. It's like a reward. So when you go back and re-listen to, for example, Dooku Jedi Lost, you start going, oh, hang on, I didn't realise that name meant this. Or like the Treasury, the Life Day Treasury, or you know, or the Star Wars main run. You know, it's everything we've done. There are little seeds to things that have been and are yet to come.
Yeah, because Star Wars, obviously, you know, we're working in this High Republic space, but you can't do it in isolation. It exists within the Star Wars mythology and the Star Wars universe. So those threads are always going to be important, that reach out beyond, or like forward or backwards from the era that we're writing.
Nice. So, Cavan, I'll throw a question at you, because you've written the audio dramas, and you mentioned Dooku Jedi Lost. What is it like to then hear some of these character voices, and for all of you as well, to hear the characters actually as performers as opposed to just words on a page?
Well, I mean, so it's incredible, but we hear that through the person of Mark Tomlins quite a lot. Let's face it, in the audiobooks. I think for all of us, when we heard those first books, you know, to actually hear the characters speak.
I got goosebumps when he did it today.
I know.
It's unbelievable. It's a magic trick.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But it's all part of the collaboration that's built into this project. So, you know, when you write for anything, whether it's audio drama, whether it's comics, whether it's TV, you're giving something over to someone else to interpret. And that's the joy of what we do. And it's the same whether it's a character moving from a book or a comic into something else, or hearing an actor perform it.
Just use your house keys.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get those in a minute. Thank you. yeah, that's the joy of this, because there's always something you don't know is going to happen. Is whether it's an interpretation or I remember hearing the first from a certain point of view story I did with Obi-Wan. The Force scene suddenly played, and suddenly I had tears in my eyes because it's that thing. It's like it's the goosebumps. It's the emotion that's wrapped up. So there's always something you've got to learn about your own characters, and that's usually from other people.
Amazing. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I know there's other folks waiting to chat with all of you, so I'll thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of your Comic-Con.
Thank
Thanks very much. Take care.